Everyone, we got a ton of information in regards to the Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving drama, so let's get into it. Now, Kevin Durant is supposed to meet with Joe Tsai this week. We have no word on when or if it's already happened yet, but they are supposed to sit down, figure out the future with him on the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets are hoping that he will rescind his trade request, but very likely all signs point to Kevin Durant standing firm with that, and we could potentially see the first domino fall if that does happen. Right now, the Boston Celtics seem like the most likely destination for that, and that's something else we'll touch on a little more in a moment. Now, when it comes to Kyrie Irving, obviously he is a big piece in this equation, right? He is very likely going to be traded. If Kevin Durant, whether he signs or decides to stay or ends up getting traded, if he gets traded, Kyrie's probably out the door too. Even if he does decide to stay, the question is, does he want Kyrie to stay as well? Because there were reports that Kevin Durant is not wanting to play with Kyrie Irving anymore. And if that's true, I assume that Joe Tsai will address that. I'm sure he'll have conversations about everything. But diving into the news as of late, first off, we have reports that pessimism around KD deal. Franchises have no interest in helping the Nets and being a third or fourth team in a potential deal. And this is from a New York source. So it's usually somebody that is on the side of the Brooklyn Nets. And it makes sense. How many teams really want to help the Nets move off of the disaster that they are in unless they're getting some real valuable pieces? And the problem is the Brooklyn Nets, they don't have any assets outside of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And many thoughts are that a deal of any kind will likely be a 3 or 4 team deal, but it looks like that might not be the case. Another big piece of news is this. This is an image that many people are talking about. Oh, the Brooklyn Nets, they posted an image of Kyrie Irving on their Instagram, and this means that things are worked out and all is good in the world once again with Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets, right? There was the report that said that Kyrie Irving is in a good place. We'll talk about that in a second, this, that, and the other. And they're making the connection with this. Here's the thing. This did not come from the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets did not post this. This is part of the tag section on the Brooklyn Nets Instagram. So what happened was from Kyrie's layup, they posted this image that said, "Run it back," with 2 championships trophies next to it. And it was tagged by the Brooklyn Nets. So it's going to show up on that feed. If you look through it, there are all kinds of things that people have tagged the Brooklyn Nets into. This did not come from the Nets themselves. This has nothing to do with the Nets. They still haven't posted anything on Kyrie Irving. This is literally just a fan wanting them to run it back, and they tagged the Nets in this post, and thus it gets posted on their page of Instagram. So no, it's not the Brooklyn Nets and Kyrie are all kumbaya again. But to keep this party going, because like I said, there's a lot more, and don't worry, we'll break this down all further in a moment. But source close to Kyrie Irving said this week that the 7-time All-Star is in a good place with the Nets and comfortable entering the 2022-2023 season. Now, this is via Ian Begley, who is a New York Knicks insider. He's part of the Knicks, part of New York. Again, we always got to look at where does this information coming from? Where is this coming? And the reason I mention this is because we also have this report. Lakers are still Kyrie's top option. All indications are that the Lakers are Irving's top destination if he leaves the Nets, per The Atlantic, which isn't either way, right? This is a more neutral site. This isn't for the Lakers or for the Nets, where the other article is strictly for the Nets. Now, starting with Kevin Durant. This is the big domino, right? This is the piece that likely starts the free agents that still haven't signed, Donovan Mitchell potentially being traded, Kyrie being traded, and maybe even some other small trades we don't even know about. He's the big domino that needs to fall in order for everything to kind of start taking place. And hopefully Kevin Durant meets with the Nets tomorrow or at some point this weekend, something like that. And then Monday we start hearing what's going to happen. Now, personally, I don't think Kevin Durant is going to rescind his trade request, which many insiders and people believe the same thing, that he still wants to be traded. And at that point, as of right now, the only place for him to go is Boston, if Boston is serious about trading for him. And if they are, then that's probably where he ends up. And once that happens, that should start the whirlwind of transactions and trades and stuff like that, I imagine Brooklyn trades Kyrie immediately if they unload Kevin Durant. Now, obviously, if Kevin Durant says, hey, I'm willing to stay, I'll write it out for a year, keep Kyrie, then that could be the wrench and everything, right? And then I still think it would start a whirlwind because now teams know where Kevin Durant is. And many people want to know, well, if Kevin Durant stays or goes, like what happens with Kyrie? I still think Kyrie very likely gets traded regardless, unless Kevin Durant says, I want Kyrie to stay here. Now, if he decides to stay and they know, like, okay, you'll write it out until we can find a better deal, I still think they move Kyrie because they still are going to have to trade Kevin Durant. They're still going to have to move off of Kevin Durant. And do you really want to keep Kyrie Irving around when if you lose him for nothing, you literally lose him for nothing? You have no money to replace him. You get no assets. You get nothing. And Kyrie Irving, again, all signs point to him wanting to go to the Lakers. Teams don't want to help the Nets try to acquire Kevin Durant because, I mean, if you're a third or fourth team, unless you're getting a significant piece or something in the deal, what's the point? For you to just add, first round picks to a deal for another team to go get in Kevin Durant, like, why do you care? That has nothing to do with you. Like, what are you getting of value? And the problem is the Brooklyn Nets have nothing of value. And anything that they trade for Kevin Durant, they're going to need themselves because they're going to need that added value. Now, it made sense back when like the Suns were a third team because they couldn't trade Ayton. So maybe you get Miles Turner in the deal and maybe you do a 3-team deal that way. There were other options before, but that well has really dried up. Now, moving on to Kyrie Irving. This is, I think, the biggest question and the biggest factor, right? Like, what is going to happen? As I said, there are no real indications or signs that Kyrie Irving is staying with Brooklyn. All of the reports that are neutral reports seem to state that Kyrie Irving still wants to go to the Lakers. Now, obviously, that Atlantic report said that Kyrie wants to go to the Lakers if he leaves the Nets. That's via trade or he becomes a free agent next season. So, again, it's the same thing that it's always been. Now, if the Nets don't trade him, then he doesn't have a choice, right? Nets say, hey, you're stuck here writing it out. Then he doesn't have a choice. What does Kyrie do at that point? Now, Kyrie Irving, I still think ultimately goes to the Lakers unless Kevin Durant states to the Brooklyn Nets, I will stay for the whole year, but you need to keep Kyrie Irving. If that happens, then yes, I think Kyrie stays. If he doesn't, or he kind of leaves the door open or whatever, then I think Kyrie is a goner because the Brooklyn Nets are going to want to get back whatever value they can. And if the Nets know we're still going to have to trade Kevin Durant at some point, whether it's this season or next, they're going to move off of Kyrie Irving because they're not going to want the headache, they're not going to want the drama, they're not going to want the chaos. They're going to want to get something back for Kyrie Irving because if he does leave them, he's gone. The Nets haven't posted anything with Kyrie Irving. Everything about Kyrie Irving is off. There's nothing in connection to Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets. If Kyrie and the Nets were really in such great standings, wouldn't the Nets be relaying that information themselves? Wouldn't they be showing a post on IG or something like that? And I'm not talking about them being tagged in a fan post. That's something we got to keep in mind. We got to look at where is it coming from? What is the information? This, that, and the other. We see people, they see that post. It's on the Instagram. Oh, it must be from the Nets, but they didn't take the time to look at who posted it. What section was it posted in? I had to find it. Like when I first heard about it, I actually had to I was looking for it. I was like, maybe it wasn't on Instagram, maybe it was Twitter. And I'm trying to find it. There's no reports about it. There's nothing about it. And I'm like, why? And then I looked at the tags and I'm like, oh, that's why. It's because the Nets didn't post anything. But this information gets spread like wildfire and people latch onto that and think, oh, okay, clearly the Nets and Kyrie Irving. It makes sense, right? There was the post from New York that said that Kyrie is in a good place with the Nets this season. The Nets are now posting images of Kyrie Irving on their Instagram. None of that, that's not what happened here. It was a fan post tagged. The report came from a New York Knicks reporter, not a neutral reporter like the Athletic, anything like that. It's just, you got to look at where all this stuff is coming from. Again, at the end of the day, I think Kyrie Irving is going to be a Lakers. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. I don't know. I'm not an insider. I don't know Kyrie personally. Me and him aren't going for drinks this weekend or anything. But all signs still point to Kyrie Irving being traded. And the only team that is worth trading to is the Lakers, because the Lakers are the only team that wants Kyrie Irving, right? And Kyrie Irving is still making it clear that he has the Lakers as the number one option. That is where he's going to go, whether he gets traded this year or he becomes a free agent and signs next year. And the Nets, they can't wait till the trade deadline or anything, because at that point, if you're the Lakers, you're not giving up anything. You know, you're lucky to get Westbrook and THT at that point. You're not getting any first-round picks. You're not getting anything because we only have to wait 3 more months and we get Kyrie Irving for free. So why would we give you anything of substance? You know, I just don't see how the Nets would be willing to hold on to Kyrie Irving unless Kevin Durant says, I need you to keep Kyrie. If you keep Kyrie, I'll ride it out this season, or, you know, maybe we'll see, and maybe I'll give it some thought on, you know, maybe sticking it out for a year, or if you give Kyrie a max extension or something like that, maybe that is what comes of this, and we find out. But personally, I think Kyrie and KD, I think they're both going to be gone at some point. I think the bridge is already burnt. There's too much damage done. I think Kevin Durant's going to go talk to Joe Tsai, and he's just going to say, hey, man, hate to break it to you, I still want out. I need you to trade me. And they're going to say, the only place we could trade you is Boston. Are you good with that? He's going to say yes, and that's it. You know, I think that will be likely the scenario sometime next week. But we'll see. We'll see how this all develops. We'll see how this all comes through. Just wanted to give you an update on the Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant situation. That being said, as always, I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. What do you think? Do you think, yeah, it's inevitable, sooner or later it's going to happen, it's a matter of when, not if? Or do you think, you know, hey, no, you know, it's one of these things where, you know, Kevin Durant at any moment, he could stay, and then if he stays, then Kyrie's going to stay, and they're going to ride it out. Again, that Instagram post that was not from the Nets, that had nothing to do with the Nets. The Nets still have no connection to Kyrie Irving as of right now. Like, that's the whole thing. It was somebody tagged into it. So again, all signs point to Kyrie Irving is still likely not going to be a Brooklyn Net. All of the reports that say he is are all Nets insiders, or, you know, that would make sense to want to put that out there to try to add some leverage in the Lakers deal. So I think that they're just leverage plays, leverage talks. All of the neutral people, the ones that don't care one way or another, even some people that are notorious Laker haters have all said Kyrie Irving's going to the Lakers at some point. So I just think that we have our answer. We know what's going to happen. But again, however you feel about it, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. One last little shameless plug is I did start As It Stands Lakers. It is a channel just like this, dedicated to only the Lakers, because the Lakers are my favorite team. And on this channel, As It Stands, I talk about all teams, all sports, stuff like that. We have football season coming up, so I'm definitely looking forward to that as well. And I just wanted to make a dedicated channel to the Lakers to give the ins and outs. Now, all the big stuff, all the big news and stuff, I will still post here on this channel. But if you want all the ins and outs and just rumors and theories and just discussions just strictly on the Lakers, link down in the description or in the comment section. Go check out the channel, subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. That being said, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, followed by the bell notification. Stay up to date with all things sports. Join this wonderful community and all of our discussions. I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.